Welcome to the Onnit podcast. We got our fucking 1 hour timer going. It's cool if we go a smidge over, but we can just glance at that for some reference points.
That's in the context of time. That's a literal passing, right? It's heavy.
It's nice to watch it pass the time, and it is heavy. It's
It
not
is
a
heavy.
fucking small. It's not a 1 minute guy. It's a
No.
1 hour dude.
Yep.
Very cool. I've fucking just met you, man, and
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure to meet you. Anytime Matt Vincent and then our own Onnit's Sean Heisen, the guy who does all of our content.
Yeah.
Anytime they say, "Hey, you got to get this guy on a podcast," between those two guys, it's a lock.
Well, it's a humbling thing because I knew Mark Bell was down here, I knew Matt was down here, and I've been using, and this is obviously something we'll delve into. I was introduced to Onnit through Alpha Brain, and because of the physicality of powerlifting and the 17, 18 years that I was put into that, I graduated from college. I was writing, I was reading all the time. And then it was just like I stopped because it didn't complement my physical pursuit. And when I had the injury a few years ago, I fell and busted my knees up pretty badly. I started to kind of take stock of, wow, that was taken in a second. Like, it wasn't like this gradual degradation of talent or ability. I was literally on a platform going for a huge squat, and then 2 seconds later on my back, and a surgeon's telling me, you may not walk for 10 months. So in that moment, it was just like this epiphany was, they can't take your mind. They can't take your vision. They can't, and I say vision as like the mind's eye, not necessarily, sight. So I really started reinvesting in reading. I started reinvesting in learning as much as I possibly could in different ways. And like we were talking about, going down the rabbit hole, one thing leads to another, and to another. And along that way, you find some really strange things, but you also find some good things. So I was like, this Alpha Brain, let's try this. What is it? Because I was in Nootropics, and I was trying those. A friend of mine had given me some.
What did you experiment with? Some of the racetams?
Yeah.
Things like that? Yeah, I
So,
played around with that quite a bit.
So start with that, and then it was like, okay, there's something here. And it wasn't like that coffee buzz. It wasn't like a pre-workout buzz. It was just kind of like somebody just cranked the watts up a little bit, a little bit more clarity, a little bit more critical thinking, faster response when I was calling on memory. So I was a terrible sleeper forever, 340 pounds, sleep apnea.
Apnea gets fucking
Man.
all the great powerlifters.
Listen, man, I'm telling you, for 10 years, I would go to bed. No matter how long I was in the bed, I would wake up and I would be exhausted. I remember the scene in Fight Club, which happens to be something that's very interesting to me, and I'll talk about that later. But, he's begging the doctor. He's like, I'm in pain. Like, I'm in pain. And you are. But one, you're the big, strong guy, so you can't be in pain. And two, you just keep going. So I had a friend reach out to me, and he got me a CPAP. Immediately, the first night, I slept 6 hours. And what I didn't realize initially was that I was getting up to go to the bathroom all the time. So I'm like, shit, man, I got some prostate issues. I got something going on. Get to talking to a doctor, and he tells me, your prostate saved your life because you're literally at the point where you're suffocating, you're drowning, and you're awake. But to keep you from going too deep or never getting back up, that prostate shifts on, and it's like, go pee. I go in there, I get 2-3 drops, and I'm like, what the fuck? What is this? But it was my prostate. My prostate was keeping me alive.
Damn.
And that's when it was really like, I was still pursuing powerlifting. I'd actually gotten stronger in some of the lifts. I'd benched over 600 pounds after my fall. I pulled 840 after my fall. I'd squatted 745 after my fall.
What was on the bar when you?
That was the reason 745 was significant, because I'd squatted more than this, but I squatted 744 at the comp. Squatted it on my second attempt. I was given a red light and infraction.
Okay.
So I had to, and my intention for this, I'd just come off of 2 competitions in Australia that I'd won my division, won money. That was in August and November. 2 trips to Australia that quick is rough.
Oh yeah.
So I decided I'm going to take off through Thanksgiving. I'm going to come back, enjoy Christmas with my family. January 1, I'm going to pick up a barbell and start training again, but I need some time. Well, this is a clear indication of who I was at that point. I picked up a barbell and I looked secure on the outside because I kind of built that structure. I was King Kong on the outside, but I was still that little boy, that insecure little boy that hadn't faced all the issues, because I picked up a barbell to kind of quell some of the insecurities, but all the insecurities were here. They weren't physical. So I was chasing those insecurities by putting more weight on the bar. Every time that I put more pounds on the bar, it was like, that's one step closer, right? That's one step closer. And then I kept finding myself further and further from that because I wasn't addressing it on the inside. So I get a call from a guy named Steve Dennison. He runs a great federation here in the States. And he said, hey, man, we want you to come out to this event in January. I'm like, no can do. I'm on a hiatus. I'm going to enjoy this time. I'm in Australia living it up. So he was like, okay, well, I'll talk to you in a week. And he calls me back, and we just kind of go through this runaround of, you know, we can cover your flight, we can cover your room, that kind of. It just kept incentivizing the deal. No. So on the heels of the success in Australia, I'm traveling 4 days a week, right? And you know how hard it is on the road to, like, training is one thing, but then training for a maximum strength is a totally different thing, because when you get off a plane, I don't want to go squat 800 pounds.
Yeah.
I can come in here and I can row, I can push ups, I can do all that kind of stuff and feel awesome, but I need to go take a nap, especially because I had sleep apnea. I need to go eat some food. I need to go just chill, and then maybe I'll have enough energy later to go do this. So combine the fact that I had stopped training for a few weeks. I get back to the States. I'm traveling like crazy, and I loved it. He goes, man, I just want to ask you to come one more time. It's January 26th. Just come in. You're strong. You don't have to go all out. Just you at 90% is still good enough. We want you here. Nah, man, I'm good. He said, oh, by the way, there's this kid named Brandon Allen. He says he can beat you. Yeah, so I'll be there. Just see you in a minute.
Sign me up.
Yeah, and that's a perfect indication of what I was trying to lose now, is that ego. Like, he can beat me. He could beat me. He might beat me. Okay, he got me today. There's tomorrow, right? And that was something for me that was really, that was the genesis of it all, was when I fell, it was directly correlated to, you didn't do what you wanted to do. What you wanted to do was to enjoy your family, enjoy your time. So you bent for the world, and the world kicked your ass for that decision. So from now on, you're only going to do what you want to do. And I started, pushing to come back. 3 months after this injury, when they told me I wouldn't walk for 10 months, 3 months to the day, I went to Mark Bell's and pulled 705 pounds. And the thing that I said at the chalk bowl resonated so strongly with me, in that Mark said, man, you got to pull. And I said, dude, there's more pride in me going up here and blowing my knees out again than missing this deadlift. So it was like, it was all in. But then after the meet, it was kind of like you have that high and then it kind of crashes. And I was like, is it really worth busting my knees up again to pull 705 pounds when that's not near what I've been? That's not near what's considered the best today. That's a pretty fucking selfish endeavor when I got a kid and I got family that love me and want to be a part of me. And I'd alienated them for so long in that pursuit.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you ever going to wake up, kid? Like, are you ever going to wake up and realize you're missing the boat? This sport doesn't care about you. These fans, these people that say they want and support and encourage you, all they see is the strong guy. They don't see the guy in the hospital bed. They don't see the guy on the couch, falling into a depression, just slamming Percocets so you can get through that next 24 hours. Because when you're sitting on a couch and you literally have a clock by your TV, it's like watching that hourglass go. It's just, the time is not moving fast enough, right? Mm-hmm. That's the only time I've ever felt I wanted time to move faster, was whenever I was broken. And physically broken, yeah, but I could still start strengthening my mind. So started reading. Netflix went off, picked up a book. I was reading 5-6 books a month. It was just like taking water to a sponge. It was just as much as I could get, more and more and more and more and more. And then the Alpha Brain, and I started taking, and this is not an ad. Like, you didn't ask me to say one thing, and I want people to understand that.
Well, we've done like 13 of these,
yeah.
And you're the first guy that's talked about Onnit products. So I think people know well, this is a give show. We fucking give you knowledge. Yeah. And obviously it's Onnit podcast, so fucking people know the deal. We drop an Onnit ad, and that's our ask for listen to the fucking ad, buy the product we're talking about. That's our one ask. But you can talk about anything you want to, brother.
But the thing about what I'm saying here is the Onnit concept, the human optimization, that is what spoke to me, and that's what allowed me to try those two things. I was using another supplement company for my protein, my creatine, and all that kind of stuff, but they didn't have anything, for sleep. They didn't have anything for this nootropic type product. So I started taking them, and it was just like, it just kind of cleared the fog. Mm-hmm. Like a natural Adderall is what I've kind of equated it to. You feel good, you think clearly. It's a different kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's no fucking backlash when you stop taking it.
No
come down, no falling flat on your face.
No, I just think that for me and where I've been, I had I don't want to say 15 minutes, but I have my footprint on my competition, and the competition has passed me by, right? Like, even on my best day before my injury, the guys have surpassed those numbers. Now, I can sit here and tell you, I wholeheartedly believe that if I had never been injured, I could go to that level. After 14 knee surgeries, 15 knee surgeries total, one on the other leg, I'm a fool if I think that I can surpass those guys. I can do me. I can train hard. I can lift weights at the level that I can achieve. But at this point, if you said, man, you'll have to go back to feeling like you did to stand on that platform at that level, are you willing to trade it? Hell no. I know that I can be strong, and I know that I can do things, but I don't want to go backwards. And I feel like 340 pounds, not sleeping, blood pressure through the roof. My resting pulse rate was 110.
Fuck, son.
Yeah.
When I was getting in with Burdick, and strong is a funny term. Strong for me. When I was at my strongest, I pulled 555, and when I got to Burdick's, I think I pulled 500 with him, which was a PR on the first day, just from technical changes on day one.
Sure.
And then, added 55 pounds over the course of over a year. And I was really happy with that. But I noticed my resting heart rate was in the mid 50s.
Right.
And that to me was a sign like we got an issue here.
Yeah.
And so, I've done altitude training and things like that. And now thankfully I'm back in the low 40s, high 30s.
Yeah.
But like fucking 110, son. I'd be like, no
dude,
way. No.
So the real deal was they couldn't operate on me because I was like in what do they call it? Maybe tachycardic, is that right? I can't remember if that
sounds like the right term.
I'm not
a doctor.
If that's not accurate, hopefully that pushes you in the right direction of where I'm going. But they were like, we got to get your heart rate down. I was like, that's where it's at all day, bro. So, but you added the fact that the trauma and rhabdo was beginning to set in. Dude, I was 125, like just sitting there. I was good at three things: squat, bench, and deadlift. I even, I joke. I said I wasn't even good at getting a blowjob. You know what I mean? It's like it was
heart rate at 200 right before
200,
you nut.
Stop. But that was the physical signs started to come. And I knew I felt bad, but I wouldn't go to a doctor because then I don't know. It's like it's just me in my head saying I feel bad, and then you have the data to prove it. And it's like, I can't lie anymore,
Yeah. Fuck, man. When did you get into strength?
17, and okay. I was an endurance athlete. I was a soccer player. I was a cyclist. I was a swimmer, and switched schools. And right as the ink was drying on me switching schools, I didn't change residence. Kentucky enacted a recruitment law that you had to change residence if you changed school districts or whatever, because there was a Catholic school that was bringing in kids from all over the country and just cleaning house. So I was caught up in that net. Didn't have sports to care about school, so I just started getting in trouble, started cutting class. Just pretty much boys will be boys kind of fun, but I had a teacher that cared enough to say, hey, you're blowing a good chance here. Meet me in the weight room after school. So he did, and he put me on a program and worked with me, but more than anything, he was kind of a Renaissance man in a way, big, strong guy, but he taught me that it was cool for a big, strong guy to be a thinker, to be more than what you look like you are. And he was one of the few men in my life that would, every day he saw me, he said, have a great day, and I love you. And this is coming, my dad loved me. I know he did. He put a roof over my head, put food on the table, but he was just a guy that was like, yeah, your mom and I, like, your mom loves you. You know what I mean? It was just one of those deals. So he taught me compassion, and he was verbal about it, and he was open about it. And it was just a cool thing. Like I think I had that positive connection with the gym because he was there. And I know that sounds kind of weird for a teacher to be privately in a gym with a student, but there was nothing more than just two guys like him wanting to help me get better because he saw something lacking. And I cannot thank him enough. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, I can count on one hand the teachers that took me aside and fucking helped me. And obviously, you go K through 12. If I can count on one hand, that means I had those teachers for 1 year max.
Right.
Those people that stuck out to me, that lasted. If I had a teacher that did, the first one was Mr. V in the 6th grade. I remembered that guy all through fucking junior high when I didn't have it.
Right.
And then I found the guy freshman year, sophomore year. There was always somebody that kept me going when I hated school, didn't want to fucking be there, and was just trying to keep my grades up to be eligible for football.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that I was actually talking to a trainer last night. He's a young guy, 27 years old, and he works with kids. And he was like, man, I want to get to the next level. And it was very organic. It wasn't him like saying, how can you help me get to this next level? Like, can you share my stuff? It wasn't like that. It was just a very genuine, I want to help more people. I want to touch more lives. And I said, you know what? The gratification for a coach like you is not right now. It's when this 8-year-old boy 10 years from now walks across his stage in high school, goes out into college, or gets a Division I scholarship, I guarantee you'll be a guy he calls and says, you made a difference. And for the most part, coaches in social media kind of rewards this mentality, but I got to be the biggest, the best, the baddest right now. And most of the coaches that I look up to and respect have like 2,000 followers. But those 2,000 followers would walk through hell in gas-soaked jeans for them, right? They'll do anything they say. They'll do anything that they want them to because they're bought in. Buy-in is huge. For someone like myself who has 100,000 followers, I posted a sunrise, and instantly I get 2 messages. Why don't you just stick to fucking lifting? And it's like, so if you're only following me because I'm lifting, that's fine, and I understand that is a real thing, but you and I would never be friends in real life. You and I would never have anything more than that barbell, and that's okay. And for a long time, I was like, no, I'll do that. I'll post more lifting, I promise. Like, I would retort with that, because I didn't want anybody to dislike me, but if everybody likes you, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
You're not taking a stand on anything.
Everyone.
Exactly. So you're just coming to a point where you just kind of look in the mirror and you're saying, okay, this is it. This is me, and that's all I got. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now, is just this huge transition point from being the strong guy to being the relatively strong guy, but being the excited guy again, because I wasn't excited for a long time. Last 5 years that I was lifting, if it wasn't competition, the training became monotonous. The life, the day-to-day became monotonous. But I lived for that moment when they put your hand up and you're the champion, because guess what? That's instant gratification. Oh, look, you got 3,000 likes on this photo. Oh, guess what? Your email just blew up. Oh, guess what? 25 more people want to work with you. That was the addiction, was like that feeling of people like me. People appreciate what I'm doing. But they didn't appreciate what I was doing because that's one moment. They only saw the good times. They didn't see when I would go home after the competition and be like, what do I do now, right? So I just had to face some hard questions. I had to face some questions about what I wanted to leave as a legacy for my son, and did I want to be the guy that went one round too long or pushed too hard? And then we were talking about Jimi Hendrix yesterday. If he was a guy that lived 50 more years, 30 more years, and he has a collection of music 50 years long, how intense was his greatness, right? But if he kept making music, and let's say he just kind of sold out and started doing like more traditional music, man, early
pop,
early Jimmy was good, but Jimmy sucked, right? After like
Jimmy Christmas album,
exactly. But, look at Dolly Parton. She's still releasing records. Does anybody talk about them? No, they're a $9.99 deal at Cracker Barrel. She's still making music. She still deserves the right to make music. But people talk about Jolene. People talk about 9 to 5. People talk about, Silver and Gold and A Coat of Many Colors. Her early stuff is where that was so concentrated and good. I'm not saying she shouldn't make music, but we tend to only look at those highest points. Mm-hmm. And then if you're not at that highest point all the time, oh, he's done. He's washed up. He sucks. So that's kind of the way I felt. It was like, do I keep pushing for everybody else to say I'm still at that level, or do I just say I had my minute and now let's do something else, because I'm a 1-chapter book if I don't.
Yeah.
So
what's the next chapter? I love that shit.
For me, I've really gotten invested in coaching. I had a bunch of online clients and I cut them way down. I cut from about 170 online clients down to 28. And these people, if somebody came into the group thinking that they were coming into a powerlifting group, they're sorely mistaken, because 10% of our discussion is weight training, lifting, whatever. We're sharing those kind of articles. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Studies on drugs, studies on plants, studies on training, studies on anything. I mean, we were talking about there's a dig site in the rainforest, and they're starting to find some proof of weaponry that predates anything that we know now. So I mean, we're talking about all this unique stuff, but originally they signed up to get stronger, and not any one of those people cares about getting stronger right now. And that probably will alienate a lot of people that are listening to what I'm saying, because they're like, dude, this guy is just, he's out there, but it's
I think this audience might be used to somewhat out there if they follow myself and Aubrey. So
that's good.
I think you're in the right audience here.
Well, and that's good. And I mean, I would rather people look at it and say, maybe I could learn something from his transition, rather than just saying, I don't even know what he's talking about, because I made those assumptions about people, like Dave Tate from Elite FTS, Mark Bell, when they transitioned from big bad powerlifter to I want to get in shape, I want to push my business, I used to mock Dave Tate for sharing a business article. Well, that's where his mindset is right now. He's just doubled or tripled the size of his business. Why would he not be excited and focused on business? He already conquered the strength, right? So when I was in that mindset, I couldn't see anything but that. So I know that there will be people that follow me that will hear this, and they'll be like, I don't know what's going on here, but that's okay. And for the first time in my 35 years, I have this naked truth. Like, judge me. What can you say? I'm living honest.
Well, there's a good way. I mean, like we said, you can't please everyone all the time. All you can do is be yourself and be authentic. When I went on Rogan's, I thought, like, I didn't have a website or a business or anything to sell or anything to promote. And I just wanted to hang with them. I wanted to hang. I wanted to talk with them about my experience with ayahuasca, and we had a blast. We had a great conversation, and then I was like, oh, everybody started was like, man, watch your Twitter blow up. It's about to fucking blow up, son.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing, like, every day, like 30, 50, 100 new followers, like tons of new followers, but the number stayed the same.
Yeah.
And it never shows you how many people stopped following
right.
you. And that cracked me up when I realized that. Maybe like 6 weeks in, I was like, man, this is so weird. I wonder if this is just not updating my total. And then I was like, oh no, there's that many people that were put off by me talking about, specifically, I had people write me that'd be like, you lost me when the trees started talking to you, bro. And I'm like, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay, right? And
Yep.
it's kind of like, my buddy Dan Hardy, who fought in the UFC for a while, he was with me in my first ayahuasca ceremony, and one of his visions was a memory of walking through Walmart in the States. He's from the UK, but he's walking through Walmart, and he's covered with tattoos like you are. And this fucking obese Walmart lady is wheeling by on a scooter, and huffing and puffing on her scooter, and she's staring at him, glaring at him, and she looks him right in the eyes, and he's kind of looking down, and he glances and sees her staring right at him, and right as she passed him, she goes, disgusting.
Yeah.
Talking about his fucking tattoos, right?
Yeah.
And he chuckled, and he realized these tattoos are something I love, but they're a fucking point of entry.
Sure.
If you're fucking that put off by the art that I have on my skin, then I don't need to bother having a conversation with you.
Well, absolutely.
So it's a way to weed out the people that don't fucking need to be there.
Yep.
And I've, a lot of what Dan says has stuck with me over the years. That stuck with me. And it stuck with me when I was thinking about the Twitter deal, because it's like, I would rather weed out the people that aren't they don't need to be on the same page. Everyone's on their own path.
Right.
But the people that aren't willing to learn from others, the people that find it disgusting,
right,
that I could speak to a tree, that I believe plants are conscious, that I see these things that are commonly seen when you go down the rabbit hole with plant medicine as strong as ayahuasca.
Yeah.
right? So they don't need to be a part of the picture. And everyone that sticks around and everyone else that joins, they know what they're getting into.
You know, it's. I think what we talked about a little bit yesterday is our ego defined us for so many years, and now I'm trying to pull that back a little bit, because here's the problem. There's a theory out there about Facebook, like the soapbox theory, and that people don't see Facebook as this interface. People see Facebook as, this is mine, and you're a visitor to my page. And how many times do you see the post of, if you disagree, don't comment? It's like, that's not reality, dude. No. But we're teaching ourselves that is reality, right? So you expect to have those same kind of engagements and those same kind of experiences in the real world. You and I can have a conversation, and we're going to have some emotional bias on what we say, but as soon as we stop arguing with facts and it only goes to emotion, I can learn a great deal from you if it stays to fact and you present something to me, right? Even if at the end of the day we still disagree, I have to applaud you for at least sharing relevant information, right?
And not getting emotionally tied to
exactly.
it, right?
And that's
a big one.
And I think that's tied to what you're saying. It's perfectly okay for this person to look at him and say, "Oh my God, your tattoos are disgusting," and you can't look at her and say, "Oh my God, you're obese and you sit around in a cart and you're mocking me." Like, why is one socially accepted and one not? So I just think that we're in a very strange time of people thinking that we're more important than we are. And the further that I've stepped away from that ego-driven point, and I realize we all have something to say, we all have different views. If you want to talk to trees and that makes sense and that somehow brings you forward, then that's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because it's that was not an intention. That was a bonus. That was the side dish that I was given to help me realize, like, everything is fucking conscious.
Right.
Everything is God, or however you want to word that. But it's all if it's fucking alive, it's got whatever soul I have.
So here's the thing, man. Last night, as I told you, I took a DMT experience, and I know exactly what you're saying in my own terms, because I got up this morning and I feel like you obviously had that intense period, but I still feel like there was some residual, maybe my dreams were a little bit enlightened and whatnot. And that area of, this is made of protons, neutrons, electrons. This is made of protons, neutrons, electrons. I am made of protons, neutrons, electrons. We're all the same stuff. But our mind and our mind's eye becomes the crayon to the coloring book. Just because we're in a room that we share and we're in a space that we share doesn't mean we see things exactly the same way. It doesn't mean we respond to them exactly the same way. If it did, we'd all be eating oatmeal, because all we need that is fuel. But you may not like oatmeal. I like oatmeal. You may not like oatmeal. We all have different tastes. We all have different experiences that guide what we see and what we feel and what we experience. And one of the overwhelming feelings that I had last night is I kind of wrestle with the idea of God. Like, I think one of the things that I've viewed most is that I'm a believer in what I can see. So I haven't seen God, so it makes me question, is God real? But then at the same time, I'm not confident enough to say that he's not real, right? But then last night when I'm in the midst of all this, and it literally 10 minutes, like it's 10, 15 minutes of just this super intense feeling. And it was like, so I get up and under my own free will, I go do this, and under my own free will, I go do that. And I kind of control myself. So I become the creator of what my world is. That's a very godlike feeling, but without ego, without exaggeration, and knowing that I control my world, but you can control yours, And that for me was so freeing, because I have a choice. I have the option to experience what I want to experience. So why am I going to continually do things I don't want to do? I mean, I'm still processing it out, but that's the foundation point of it, is every single day is a blank slate, and we have the chance to do whatever we want. We literally have the chance to do whatever we want. If you want to go to Montana, let's go get in your truck and let's go. Like, we can get there, but it's somebody or something or some bill or some job is holding back people from exactly what they want to do. Now, there has to be a means to an end, but don't be the reason that you don't do it. there's going to be other factors that limit you. Don't limit yourself. And if you can't do it physically, run with it mentally. And that's why I think I took the chance on the DMT, because I've had 4 or 5 experiences on shrooms. I think there's a great benefit to marijuana, especially the edible. And I think that once you start seeing that the mind kind of relaxes and lets down some barriers, it lets down some expectations, you want to go to that next step. I have no desire to do LSD because I feel like that's chemically driven, but you're talking about something that's very, very natural. It's in everything. DMT is in everything. And I think that's one of the layers that you get to is I am no different than anything else in this world. I'm just a thing in this world for a blink. That right there will count out 75 years if I wanted to. Like, we could just keep flipping it. But if I do nothing with it, then I'm nothing. So I better do something with it, right?
Yeah, make the most of your time.
Exactly. And that was a harsh reality. I'm 35, and according to the age brackets that my men in my family have died, I've lived longer than I have to live. And it's funny that right about the time that you have that realization, or you've fucked up enough to realize that you got to do something different, then you figure it out, and it's like it's a race against that sand. How much can I get done before it's over? And it's sad that it gets that way, because my dad has never given me the wrong advice once. He told me this long time ago, because he was a guy that he was in that hamster wheel, and he was like, "You're better than this, kid. You're better than this." But I didn't believe it until I fucked up for myself, And I think for my son, I hope that he can see a life that I'm living and mirror that more than me having to say, "Don't do it like Dad did."
Yeah.
So I want to live a life that he can model after.
Far better to pull than push.
Yeah.
Far better to lead by example. And it's experience is the best teacher. So there's no fault in learning from your own mistakes instead of, fucking figuring that out just from the mistakes of others.
Have you noticed, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
go ahead, brother.
Have you noticed, like, I'm sure you fought the current, right? You fought the stream, you're the fish swimming against it, and life was hard. And then I kind of got to the point where it was like, I don't know where I'm going to go, but I know that I'm just going to go with it. Like, I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to accept. And that's when I started meeting some very unique people that I would have never been in a circle with before. I think that's why I'm here today. Honestly, I think it's why I'm here today was because I've just been talking to more interesting people that they want to ask questions. They want to understand. They want to evolve. And this guy introduced me to this guy, and this guy introduced me to this guy, and this guy introduced me to you and you. And we're sitting here today because we're all on a similar path. But I didn't push to be here. I didn't say I want to go to Onnit this morning. It just happened. We were eating burgers over at Holy Cow, and it's like that was the introduction. And then from there, it was like we came over here and trained. Matt maybe put in a good word for me or whatever, and then it's like here we are. But you, me, and Matt, conversations that we're having, we're all asking the same questions, right? And that's by no accident, even if it feels accidental. Yeah. So I feel like
one thing that I've learned from these plant medicines is that there really are no accidents.
No.
There are no accidents. And that doesn't mean that, from the traditional Christian, God has a plan. It has nothing to do with that. It just means that, even from a mistake standpoint, the only real mistake is the one you don't learn from.
Right.
Every time I've fucked up in the past or gone through some really hard times in my life, looking back in hindsight, like that was the exact catalyst I needed to grow further. That was the exact thing I needed to push me to level up.
Right.
To use one of Dan Hardy's terms. Like I without those things, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And you can't hold that. You can't hold the bad without. You can't have bad without good. You can't have one without the other. You can't. There is no short without tall. There's no fat without thin. It's all on the same fucking pendulum.
Right. Well, I took my son to an Imagine Dragons concert, and not necessarily my wheelhouse of favorite music, but I'll tell you what, one of the best concerts I've ever been to in my life. They were extremely positive. The message was real, but he said something that was just blew me away. He said, my whole life I was an awkward kid. I had anxiety. I was depressed. He said, when I got about 16, 17, I asked who decided what depression was. And it's not some scale that you can put around your head and then say, okay, here's an accurate reading. It's just an assessment that was designed by human beings to say, you're not normal. You're not like me. You're not in this mold, right? But he said that depression led me to music, and that music led me to the stage in front of 25,000 people. He's like, do I want to be depressed? Do I want to have those feelings of sadness? No, but that sadness created the words that created my music. I became anti-bullying because I was a bullied kid, and I wanted to talk about not letting that get you down. There is a point in life where that will turn around. And it's like, so his depression was his enlightenment, right? Poe, his depression was his enlightenment. And on and on and on. I mean, I think you look at guys like Hunter S. Thompson or Hemingway. Without that, actually, this all stemmed from the John Butler Trio, the song Oceans. Have you seen it? It's a 12-minute video. This dude it's just him and a guitar, a 12-string.
No, we'll link to it in the show notes.
But I'm like, that's his language. And if that guitar wasn't the translator, we would never understand that guy. But when he picks up the guitar, I mean, I get him. Like I get every single thing he's about, because that is his language. And all of us have something like that inside of us. A lot of us just don't seek the translator. You know, we don't find that thing that allows us to give our gift. And I think that's what I'm searching for the most is, what is my gift? I think my gifts revolve around writing, revolve around painting, revolve around art. But I squashed that down because it wasn't masculine. It wasn't tough. It wasn't expected. Mm-hmm. Do the unexpected. Do the thing that everybody says that's the last thing that guy would do. And that's what I love. And it's not that I'm great at it, but I get it when I put something out there, when I write something down, when I look at it, I feel clean. You know, I feel lighter.
It's important to have something that taps into that creative piece of our hearts.
Yeah.
You know? Without that, we feel like we're just a fucking rat on the wheel.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm doing everything for everyone else, or I'm doing this because it's what I need to do now. Paul Chick, we had him on not long ago, and he was talking about the prostitute archetype. The prostitute archetype can be good or bad. It's good when you do the thing you don't want to do for a period of time as a means to an end to get the thing you do want to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'll work this shitty job and save up so I can start my own business and do the thing that I love.
Yep.
Or I'm going to work this shitty job till we get out of this crappy neighborhood and I can provide for my family and put a nice roof over our heads. Then I'll start looking in other directions.
Right.
I'll take the sure thing for as long as I can use it and then move on. And the prostitute archetype is bad when you fucking keep doing it just for the money and you sacrifice your creativity. You sacrifice your own positive well-being and your own quality of life just for the money.
Sure. Well, it's funny. I didn't know that there was actually a thing, calling the prostitute archetype. Maybe my country bumpkin grandfather was a lot smarter than I thought. But when I was younger, he always said that. He was like, we're all going to be prostitutes to something. We all got a price. And that's true. And he was like, you're the only one that determines what that's worth. So what is your day worth? You remember, I think it was Anna Nicole Smith, I don't wake up for less than $10,000. I think it was her that said that, but if not, there was another model. She valued her day at $10,000, right? So most people will get up and they'll say, this is what my bills are, this is what I have to make, this is what I have to make. No, I get that, and I've been there, and I have to do that too. But you could also say, what could I be making? Even if it's not money right now, if it leads to happiness and fulfillment, then you're not buying things to fill those holes, to fill those voids. Then you have more money. When you're truly happy, I don't need much, because I'm satisfied and I'm complete in what I got. I spend most of my money on food because I love the feeling of shared food and like people being around a meal. You get some pretty good conversations around food, right? I'd rather do that than to go, hey, let's go to the football game. That's cool, but I can't talk to you. I can't, I would like to have those shared experiences. So what would make me happy right now? I just want somebody to set me on fire with talking to me. Let's have some awesome food. Let's get some awesome beer. Let's sit here and talk. Let's do it. And what are we doing right now? Yeah. Exactly. That's
that. Rogan calls this the last great conversation.
I think
nobody's looking at their cell phones. There's no fucking distractions. We're able to sit down face to face and really dive deep for an hour.
I think that's what the podcast is. The world of the podcast has taken off so strongly because it's foreign to us. When was the last time? I mean, and the cool thing about it is, from a standpoint of a listener, for 3 hours you're in a conversation. You're not talking. You're forced to shut the fuck up and listen.
Well, it's like somebody's sitting right here in the room with us right now as they're listening to this in their car or wherever they're at.
Yeah, and
commute.
But how many times I noticed it in Finland? Have you ever been over to Finland or any of the Scandinavian countries?
No, I want to. Fucking Matt Vincent's got me just jacked.
Iceland, yeah.
To go over there, yeah.
So, I train a guy named Runer. He's a photographer, which is why I fell in love with his work. But he's also a powerlifter. He trains with Thor.
Okay.
And he's a coach at his gym, so gonna make that trek too. But in Finland, it was almost like this awkward transition point in conversation because they will literally take 3 to 5 seconds before they answer your question. And it's not because they don't have the answer. The way it was explained to me was this guy named Aki. He told me that we don't reply immediately because we want to give your question the credit it deserves. Because usually what you say first is ignorance. And what you say after, like how many times have you sent a text message and as soon as you hit send, you're like, oh shit. What I've done is like if I'm heated or if I'm, in a serious conversation, I'll type out my answer. I'll set it down for just a second. I'll reread it. And then it's like, okay, I could probably clean this up a little bit. And that's what they do when they speak. So they value the word. Americans, myself included, for the most part, it's just yap, 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 yap. The mouth is moving, the face is making sounds, but you're not saying anything.
Keep going. I got something to add to that. This is fucking phenomenal.
But that's just it. It's the fact that saying less is sometimes saying more if it's the right thing to say, and giving conversation the appreciation that it deserves, not just rattling something off. Like, what do you think about squats and chains? Oh, I don't like them. Well, that's a foolish answer. How are you implying, or how are you using them currently? Okay, I see where the fault lies within your training. Let's do this. So by asking a question to a question, I can get to a deeper level of understanding and a deeper level of explanation. But so many times in this rat race, we talk about the wheel. We just want to get it so we can get to the next one, because the next one might mean $1. The next one might mean $10. You know what I mean? It's just on and on and on and on and on, instead of just the human connection aspect of, man, that guy just helped me out.
Yeah,
we're losing that. And do you know your neighbors? Exactly. That's been something that I've really focused on, is being that guy that, hey, I'm here. If you need something, if I can ever help out, here I am. And that was a start for me, because I just kept feeling myself get closed in. And now I'm trying to get out, meet everybody, shake everybody's hand. When you come to these events like over at Power Athlete Symposium, you're like, oh my God, there's that guy that does that stupid shit on Instagram. He's a real guy behind the Instagram. And if I only talk to him or only judge him on that, then I miss the whole thing. So I'm trying to, that's one of my defaults when I'm in a room full of people, because I tend to be more of a pull back. I'm just trying to go all in. I'm trying to figure it out more real. Like, let's have a real conversation. Don't text me. Don't be on Facebook. Let's talk for 5 minutes. Last night, I was blown away. Like 20, 30 conversations that I would have never had 5 years ago. So,
yeah, I think as you become more open and you start to maybe let go of the need to be right, or the need to look a certain way. Like when you're talking about answering questions and in conversations, especially with clients, or if I'm on Facebook Live, it's easy to just, somebody says, should I eat carbs or not? It's like, well, why?
Yeah. Like,
maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe there's a time and a place for everything.
Sure.
Maybe you cut them for a few months if you're trying to lose weight. If your goal is strength and you're training maximum power, like, fucking eat carbs.
Yeah.
Eat good carbs for damn sure. Don't cut those out. You're gonna fall flat on your face otherwise, right? Yep. So things like that, I think it just takes a little investigation, and that takes taking a deep breath. And
Absolutely.
then investigating a little bit more, and then coming up with some quality conversation from that. But I think one thing that's really helped me, and fairly recently, even this week, I disagreed with somebody on. I don't want to dive too far into this, because if somebody's listening, I don't want them to figure this out. But there was a huge disagreement on something, and me 5 years ago would have fucking blown up and be like, nope, you're wrong. This is the way. You're fucking completely wrong.
Right.
And instead, I just kind of said, oh, all right, I disagree, and I just kind of sat back and I focused on my breathing and I relaxed, and then after that, I went and meditated for 40 minutes because I was fucking boiling.
Sure.
And in that meditation, I was able to release that.
Yeah.
Like that was the fucking whole point of the meditation. Sometimes I go into meditation and I'm like, let me just fucking see what comes to me.
Right.
Let's see what epiphanies I have, what fucking language comes in, what thoughts do I have, what will I get from this being quiet, right?
Right.
Stillness. That meditation had an intention. The intention was, I don't want to fucking be angry the rest of the day. Let me just calm the fuck down. And it worked very well. And what happened in that, from being calm and all the interactions I had with that person the rest of the day, they felt that energy.
Oh, yeah.
They felt me being calm and not being a dick about the fact that, because they knew I disagreed. Right. They knew that I disagreed to the fucking core on the issue, right? And then from there, moving forward, you know, that person came back later and asked me, like, what are the ways we would do it differently?
Sure.
You know, and it was very easy then from a place of peace and stillness to be like, oh, thanks for asking that. You know, I have some ideas. Here's a couple books to read, you know, and it was like, it was such a fucking cakewalk compared to what it would have been 5 years ago if I was like, fuck you, my way or the highway. I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's, like you look at communication. I studied communication in college.
Oh, so did I.
It's funny how you're going to be doing the Soar Next podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm doing the Onnit podcast. So it's like everyone goes to college now and they never use what the fuck they learn in college for their work. And oddly enough, communication and sociology and psychology are quite a bit what I bring up, you know, through this podcast. But you know, this idea in communication, like I'm always trying to figure this out with my wife. I'm always trying to figure and with my fucking 2.5-year-old son.
Yeah.
You got a kid, you know, it's like how we communicate makes all the difference in the world in our relationships.
Right.
You know, it makes all the difference in the world with our friendships. Everything is fucking fragile.
Right.
Right. So if we can speak authentically and with a gentleness that allows the other person to save face. You know, like my dad always said, like, you know, if you don't start a fight, but if somebody's fighting you, you're allowed to fight back.
Right.
And that said, you always give them a way out.
Sure.
You don't fucking corner someone, beat them to a pulp. You always give them a way out.
Right.
And if they want out mid-fight, you allow them to fucking leave with grace. Because that's the guy that'll leave and not come back with his buddies.
Right.
You know, like you always give the person a way out in conversation. You always give the person a way out of that first line, because not everyone's as mindful of how they approach communication or how they speak to one another. And if you're firing back texts and it's the first knee-jerk reaction, like, no, that's not what I fucking said, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot easier to just say, hey, hold on a second, let's get on the phone here.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's something that has been lost. I talk about taking the time to separate. When's the last time you wrote somebody a letter?
I got it's been years. I got two thank you notes.
I'm going to challenge you. Write somebody a letter. I have a friend. He's been a client off and on for a long time, and I have a hard time calling him a client because he's a friend. He's actually evolved into somebody that I care very much about, and he's a very successful guy, very, very successful. I can't imagine too many people that wouldn't trade lives with this guy. But he's like anybody else. He's human. He messaged me. He's like, dude, I'm just at my wit's end. I'm spread too thin. I'm pissed off. I'm angry. He's like, I snapped at my wife. You know. And I said, dude, what's going on? And he was like, I don't know, man. I'm just don't feel like I'm getting ahead. I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. He's ahead. He's doing very well, right? But we all get trapped into our own like self and what we want to do. And sometimes we don't get content with what we have. We just keep looking at more and more and more and more and more. He's like, I feel real bad about snapping at her. I said, write her a letter. Tell her what you've been going through. Tell her that you're stressed. Tell her why you're stressed. But also tell her that she made all this possible. You've told me that before. Dude, he said she just wept like openly when she got the letter because it's different. It's taking the time to do something in your own hand. And I think, especially in a day and age where that's uncommon now, when you do pick up the phone and make the phone call, so it's not 20 different texts of maybe I understood what you're saying, maybe I didn't. No, let's get right to the bottom of this. And the same thing with a letter. Like, I tend to find on a text message, you can just go and go and go. But when you start writing a letter, it tends to just, you kind of get into that space where you're not really thinking. It's just really coming out. And I think to speak on meditation, for people that are hearing this and they're struggling with, oh my God, you guys sound like a bunch of, hippies just talking about meditating and this, that, and the other. The best way that I was able to free my mind from all of that expectation was if you had this feeling during a dream, you wouldn't think it was foreign. It would be completely normal to hear languages, to talk to trees, to fly, all these things in a dream. That's normal. But when you close your eyes and you're conscious of it and your mind still goes there, we run from it. But no, that's exactly where your mind wants to go. It wants to be free. It wants to talk to the trees. It wants to fly. It wants to fall off a cliff and catch itself before you hit the water, you know? So I think if you just let the mind run and you view meditation as that, I'm not trying to guide it. I'm just trying to let it go where it goes. The same with that letter. I started out with the intention of, let me say what needs to be said, but then you just find that rhythm where it's just coming out. That's the way I meditate, is I start with the intention of, I need to calm the fuck down. So that begins with the breathing. That begins with the relaxation. That begins with, my life is pretty good if this is the worst thing I got going on right now. And then I just kind of hum out. And wherever I go, I mean, talking to trees might be a light day for me, buddy. You know what I mean? But it's not something that anyone should be discouraged from. It's uncomfortable because people have been conditioned not to feel those things. Like, that's why the pineal gland shrinks as we age, not because it will shrink. You go to indigenous communities where people are still taking ayahuasca and all these things. The pineal gland is still huge because nobody's telling them, oh, you can't do this. You're not allowed to do that. You know, having the ability to dream and to vision and to see something in a positive way is all tied to the pineal gland. But life and experience, oh, you can't have $1 million. You can't get out of this job. You can't do that. Every day it's just like a kick in the balls to your pineal gland. And it just finally shuts down to the point where you're so bitter, you're so hateful, you're so angry because you've shut off the fact that you can dream. Like, when you're a kid, you go outside, that's like being on a mushroom trip all the time, right? My son can go out here and he can talk to Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles and shit. I think it's awesome. But he thinks it's real, right? Yeah. At 10 years old, you are convinced you're talking to Ninja Turtles. Yeah. Why at 35 can't I talk to a tree, right? So I think it's just the expectation or the fear of what others think of that prevents us from letting go. But when, like last night, during the DMT trip, I had 3 people in the room that have been intensely involved in my progression as a human being. They like me because I'm Brandon, not because I'm strong. They weren't doing it, but they were there in support of me, and I could feel it. Like, I could feel that in the room. Dude, it's heavy right now. Like, it's a very heavy feeling to know that Corey came over, and at one point, like, I guess I was just kind of moving my hands a little bit. He just kind of put his hand on my shoulder, and dude, it was like somebody punching through water, and it just splashed over me. It was just like the craziest feeling, but it was warmth, like a blanket. Like, this is my friend. He's with me. And I didn't know it was Corey at the time. I just knew that somebody in that room of some people that cared about me was there with me, because he thought I might have kind of been like freaking out. A little
struggle, yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It was just, I was kind of at a point of like, what next? And then it was just kind of like a push. That's the way it felt. It was like, just go, just keep going. And it was awesome. It was completely awesome. And when I came out of it, I sat up and I looked around, and it was like, this is exactly where I want to be. This is exactly where I should be. And that was a pretty like incredible feeling, because for most of my life, I felt like I've had to be somebody that I wasn't, and I've had to be in places that I didn't want to be. And in this moment, I'm right there. I'm in that moment.
Yeah, I think when it's done right, that's a fairly common trip report, is this complete contentment. It doesn't mean you don't have goals or that you won't continue to pursue your dreams. It just means that right now is fucking awesome too.
Yeah.
You know, down the road will be great, and whatever happens, happens, but right now is fucking great.
I could not imagine. I mean, I just eaten good food. I just had this awesome experience, and I sat up and we started talking, and we kind of had some in-depth discussion, and then it was just like, we were just laughing. When was the last time you just laughed so hard you couldn't stand it, right? Like up to my ears hurts today because I was smiling and laughing so hard. But if you're laughing, it's hard to be upset. It's hard to have a bad day. And those people were there, they were laughing with me, not at me, laughing with me. And it was, I mean, you get it. It's just a heavy, heavy thing. And for somebody to judge that and say it's wrong, I don't feel sorry for them. I just wish that they could hear it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, again, experience is the best teacher. And if we go based off ideas and what everyone else has said, or what
what Big Brother has told us our whole fucking lives about these things, it doesn't make sense. But I think thankfully, more and more people are starting to question what we've been brought up believing, what we've been, they talk about this in the 4 Agreements, the domestication of man.
Sure.
We've all fucking been domesticated. The first time I read that book, I was like, this guy's a sour bitch. Like, what happened to him to make him think we've all been fucking domesticated like animals?
Right.
And then going through some of these experiences myself, I reread it about a year ago. I reread it a couple months ago. And every time I reread that domestication part, I'm like, motherfucker, this is so spot on. And it makes me analyze everything that I've agreed upon. Because everything we fucking do in modern society is an agreement. Right. It's all something that we all collectively, consciously say, oh, yes, this is true. Right. Or yes, this is right. But very few things other than gravity and shit like that are known truths in the universe.
Sure.
Right? Very few things.
Yeah.
So most of which things we live by, including, and I'm in a monogamous marriage right now, but we've talked quite a bit about sex at dawn and different things like that, and the agreement of monogamy. Right? Which is an agreement. It's
sure it is.
Not the way that everyone lived. And I don't know if we'll ever go down that path, but it at least, as I open up, and this is just one example, this is not to open up the rabbit hole on that discussion, but it's just like, just to understand, this is something we agreed to do.
Right.
It's not something that is a noble truth or a fucking law.
Right.
That human beings pick one partner for the rest of their lives. We're not fucking penguins in the Arctic. It's not, we're closely related to bonobos more than chimps. And bonobos fuck all day, every day with everybody.
Yeah.
And they do just fine.
Yeah.
So I mean, and again, we're not in a tribal setting where everyone raises everyone's kids, and it makes it a lot easier to do, especially with kids involved. But
let me ask you this:
just one piece,
with your experience, could you find yourself accepting of that if it was presented to you in a way like you and say 5 of your closest friends, their wives, their kids, we're going to live as a tribe, and wherever that goes?
Well, yeah, dude, Dr. Dan Engel was just on Aubrey's podcast, and he's lived in a fucking modern day commune type thing where that's exactly what they do.
Right.
And that seems more feasible to me than, hey, we're going to get a babysitter tonight and both of us are going to go out on dates with other fucking random people. Like, that makes no sense to me. The tribal setting does. But, again, like, we could fucking talk about that for 2 hours. Point is, like, that's just one really important piece of how we're educated, what we agree to, like, because we're born into that. Like, that's the other thing. Like, when you start peeling back these agreements, you realize we are born into we're born into the now.
Yeah.
And when we were born, we're both 35.
Yeah. God,
you had telephones.
You look so much better than me for 35. This is embarrassing. Jeez, man, you kill it.
Yeah, but you were just fucking around yesterday with 405 on bench reps. My best ever at 268 was 405 for a single. So there's benefits to everything.
That's one moment. You got those looks for life, dude.
Yeah, my face has been rearranged enough, so thankfully I held some of it. When we peel back these agreements, we began to think about that. Like, oh, I was born in 1982. We had telephones. Yeah. There was a time and a place. There are people alive today that were around before telephones. There were people around that saw the fucking first cars. And you go back generations before that, people got around in horse and carriage.
Yeah.
There was people fucking before electricity. Mm-hmm. There was, it's just fucking nuts when you rewind not that far, right? And you think about the world today and you complain and you think of like and all the shit going on in politics and all that. But you see like it was the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
When we fucking had huge, fuck, and you're in Kentucky, like my time in Kentucky, my buddies that were there, they're like, hey man, this ain't the West Coast.
Right.
Like if you talk to black people, it may not be the same response back home.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And they're like, no, I'm serious, bro. Like it's a different animal here.
Yeah.
And thankfully, like we were at a gas station and we're walking in and there was 3 big black dudes standing outside and they see us 5 white guys walk in and they hear us talking and we came out and one of the guys was like, hey, y'all ain't from around here. And I was like, no, I'm from California. And he's like, oh shit, you're from the West Coast. And all 3 of them started talking with us.
Right.
Because they knew we weren't a part
of that history,
Sure.
right? But that history was fucking a blink of an eye.
Same.
Hitler was a blink of an eye.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is we make these assumptions that, oh, we would never do that again. No, Eisenhower took the troops through the concentration camps after it was over, and he said, "Look at this, so you never forget and you never let it happen again. Look at this." And he made the soldiers stand there and look at the devastation. You know, what do we do? We were in Korea 12 years later. You know, we're in Vietnam 20 years after that, and we're right back in Afghanistan and Iraq. Damn good for the guys and girls that go over there and fight. Like, all the power to them. But we didn't learn. The men and women learned, but our government didn't learn, right? So I look at all these things and all these places that we're going as people, and it's just like, unless you really have this radical exodus from the norm, we're just going to be repeating ourselves. You know,
100%.
we're just going to keep repeating. So you have to step outside of that to really experience something significant. And I love that you went the direction of expectation and kind of this, we're told, not experienced. So when I went into college, I had an English professor named Phil English. And the first day in class, he goes, "Okay, I want to ask you this. How many of you in here believe in God?" And a few hands went up, a few didn't. And he goes, "Okay, how many of you white people hate black people?" No hands go up. And he goes, "Okay, how many of you black people hate white people?" No hands go up. He goes, This is the most egalitarian, uniform like society that I've ever been a part of." He said, "That's amazing." He's like, "Let's cut the bullshit. How many of you white people hate black people?" And a couple hands. He said, "If I take away the word hate and I say the word have fear of black people," a few hands go up, right? And he goes, "Okay, well, tell me the experience that gave you that fear." Crickets. Some of these people had never experienced anything, good, bad, whatever, with someone of the opposite race. They just did it because mama told them to. Or they did it because TV told them to. Or they did it because of this. And he was like, how much of your bullshit life do you believe because somebody told you to? If you believe in God, go to the Bible. Learn that thing inside and out, because that's your eternity. And if you don't know that Bible inside and out, you're not holding the key. Figure it out. If you don't like black people, better have a damn good reason. If you black people don't like white people, you better have a damn good reason. Don't talk about what you see on the TV. Talk about the experience that you've had with that guy sitting 5 feet from you, right? What? Like, it changed everything for me, because all I believed in was what was given to me. Nothing that I had earned, right? I had never earned anything in my belief system. So at 20 years old, I had to start peeling back. Like, why do I feel this way? Where does it go? And it almost had a bad effect at first because I got negative. I was mad at myself for being fooled, right? But now it's like everybody's getting fooled. I'm not going to judge anything, because I'll try anything. I'll do anything, whatever it is. You know, Voltaire says, once a philosopher, twice a pervert. You're allowed to do anything on this world once in the name of understanding. If you go back to it, that's where the perversion can begin. Like, it becomes an addiction. It becomes a craving. Or it's just something that's really cool and should be repeated, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to experience it. If you don't do these things, if you don't try things, if you don't talk to new people, you're just limiting your life. You're in a box. And I'm from Paint Lick, Kentucky. Paint fucking Lick, Kentucky, okay? And when I went to Mark Bell's to do that first meet in California, when I told people, they said, well, you might as well be going to the moon if you're going to California. That's their mindset, because it's a difficult place to get away from. There's a lot of ties there. There's a lot of good families there. So I know people that want to get out of there, people that want to go to California, people that want to do these great things, but they're scared. Well, I got to leave my family. That may happen. You know, I had to distance myself from my family for a few years for powerlifting. Was it the right thing? Fuck no. Was it a learning experience? Absolutely. I learned so much about myself because I broke myself completely apart. And I became alone. And when you're alone and when you're isolated, you start having to ask yourself some really tough questions. You know, if you're always pointing the finger around the room saying, God, they're all assholes, you might need to turn the finger back around and say, I'm the asshole. You have to learn from those experiences. And if you don't, then you're right back in the same mistake again. Like we were talking, you just do it over and over and over. War begets war begets war. When really, if you walk over and you do something horrible, like if you hurt your child, you would never go back and do that again. Like you would just not repeat that same mistake. But we're repeating war, right? How do we do that? Like, how do we allow this to happen in a day and age when we could be so much better? We could do so much more. And that's where I just look at if we can be better as a society, then I can be better as a human being, and I can connect better with human beings. So
hell yeah, brother. Doing a lot of work, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us, dude.
Oh, thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
You have no idea the impact that just being here and like talking about Aubrey's poster. I don't think that poster was there by chance. I mean, it was exactly what I needed to see as I read it, and it was just like, yeah, the path is going this way, and that's where I need to be. So thank you so much, man. I mean,
yeah,
it was awesome.
Where can people follow you on social media?
You can follow me. It's Brandon Lilly, Lilly 3 is my Instagram. I'm Brandon Lilly Powerlifter I'm actually going to change that. I'm not going to be a powerlifter anymore. I'm just going to be Brandon Lilly on a fan page. But it's Lilly Brandon 3 on Twitter. Instagram is probably the most realistic look at who I am. It's where I'm the most invested. I'm starting to play with Twitter a little bit, just as I have a second and I have a thought that's kind of random or weird, or might create some kind of thought. I'll put a tweet out there here or there, but for the most part, Instagram is my currency. That's where I put the most time, effort, and share the most reality of who I am and what I'm interested in. I kind of like something John Welborn said, which was, a lot of people are turning the camera this way. I want to turn the camera around so you can see my world. You can see the experiences that I'm having, and you can look at my face anytime you want, but I want you to see what I'm looking at. I want you to see what I'm a part of and where that's going. And I don't even know where it's going, but I'm not fighting it anymore. Right?
Fuck yeah, brother. I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, brother.
Thank you.